Hello all my dear students and welcome back to the next class of Sri Zendra Rank Zone classes, and I'm your mentor Amit Ajmani. What are we going to do in this particular class? We'll be starting up a chapter, Improvement in Food Resources. Now first of all, we know very basic, very common thing that why do we eat food? For growth, development and for body repair we require food, because this food contains all the nutrients which are required by our body. These nutrients also protect the body from diseases and provide energy for doing all the life functions. Now the problem we all are aware is that India ranks second in population growth along the world, and we know that our population is growing exponentially. So how to feed such a huge population? For that, we need to improve our food resources. There are two combined negativities taking place. First is the population is rising increasingly, very exponentially, and the croppable land, the arable land is decreasing. So it is a double-sided negative effect. So what we need to do is we need to manage our resources in such a way that we are able to fulfill the demands and requirements of the growing population. So we need to increase the production for the fulfillment of the requirements of all the plants and animals. There have been many attempts, many achievements in the past. There have been many revolutions being taken place. For example, green revolution, blue revolution, white revolution and yellow revolution. The green revolution refers to the high production of food grains. The blue revolution, it refers to the enhanced fish production. White revolution refers to the increased milk production, and yellow revolution refers to the increased oil production. And still we need to find new techniques and new ways in order to improve our food resources. What we need to do is sustainable agriculture. What is sustainable agriculture? It can be defined as the adoption of various farming and production management techniques so that we can maximize the agricultural yield. And for this sustainable agriculture, we need to implement few practices like conserving the natural resources, maintaining the environmental balance, and coping with the changing human needs. Fine. Let us try to relate a few definitions. What is farming? Farming is the process of harnessing the solar energy from plants and animals in the form of economic produce. Next term that we need to be aware is conservation. What is conservation? It means careful utilization, preservation or restoration of the natural environment and the resources. Next term is integrated agriculture. Now, integrated agriculture implies a combination of agriculture with other forms of culture such as pisciculture, that is the fish culture, or aquaculture, or apiculture, that is beekeeping, or sericulture, that is silkworm culture, or the poultry farming, piggery, livestock production, that is animal husbandry. So all these are taken together and they constitute integrated agriculture. Now, what are the various advantages of doing sustainable agriculture? Sustainable agriculture is the agriculture production and distribution system that is going to help us in the following things. How? It is going to help us to achieve the integration of natural biological cycles and controls. It is going to help us to protect and renew the soil fertility and the natural resource base. It will help us to optimize the management and use of farm resources. It is going to assist in reduction of the use of non-renewable resources and any purchase production inputs. It is going to assist in providing us an adequate and dependable form of income, and it is going to promote opportunity in family farming and farm communities. So these are the various advantages of sustainable agriculture. Quite important, what is organic farming? Organic farming is the practice of raising crops which have not been polluted with the use of manures or biofertilizers or biopesticides. In organic farming, there is little, almost negligible, or no use of chemical fertilizers or pesticides or herbicides. And because these chemicals are not used, that is why there is no toxicity due to the pollution of crop plants or soil or water or air. Nowadays in India, this organic farming, this is growing in pace. This is the actual preference of all the farmers nowadays. What are the various advantages of doing this organic farming? Obviously, it is going to prevent the pollution of any component of our environment, whether it is air or water or soil. By doing organic farming, the farm wastes are recycled. The food which is obtained by doing this organic farming, they are free from any kind of poisonous or harmful pesticides or other toxic chemicals. Organic farming also maintains the soil health, and the cropping system of organic farming, it keeps the insect pests and the weeds under check, under control. So these are the various advantages of doing organic farming. Fine. Now coming to the crops. We have got two type of crops depending upon the season in which they are done. First are the kharif crops. Now the kharif crops, they grow during the rainy season in the months of June to October, and that is why they are also called summer season crops. The main kharif crops, the cereals and pulses, are the paddy, that is rice, maize, millet, groundnut, soybean, arhar, blacksmith, green gram, cotton and jute. Fine. The second type of crops are the rabi crops. These crops grow from November to April, and that is why they are also known as winter crops. The few examples of important rabi crops are wheat, barley, gram, mustard, pea, linseeds, and many more. So these are the kharif and the rabi crops. Depending upon the seasons, you need to relate. Now comes the most important part that we'll be doing in this chapter, the various scientific approaches which we are adopting in order to increase our natural resource production or increasing or improving our food resources. The first thing that we'll be doing is crop production management. We are going to manage the crop production. We are going to try to increase our crop production. After that, we need to relate the crop variety improvement also, that we are using good variety, better variety, improved variety of crops so that the production may increase. And once after using better varieties, we are able to produce better crops or more crops, then we will do the crop protection management, because we need to protect our crops so that they are not wasted, they are not damaged. So we will be studying these three scientific approaches one by one. Let us start up with crop production management. What exactly crop production management refers to? Crop production management refers to controlling the various aspects of crop production so as to obtain the maximum and the best yield. Now, in order to get the maximum and best yield, we include three components. First is the nutrient management. We need to provide nutrients which are required to the plants, right? Then irrigation, we need to supply them with water, and cropping patterns are followed so that the fertility of the soil can be improved and be maintained. Let us discuss all these three components one by one. First of all, talking about the nutrient management. Nutrient management means controlling the selection, the timing, and the amount of nutrients which are to be supplied to the crops. We know that just like human beings, plants also require some inorganic elements in order to build their structure and to maintain their metabolic processes. And all such inorganic elements are called nutrients. Plants obtain these nutrients from various sources. These nutrients are supplied to the plants by air, water, and soil. Approximately there are 40 elements which are found in the plant ash, but out of these 16 are essential for plant growth and development. So these 16 elements are the essential elements or the essential plant nutrients. Now out of these 16, two elements, carbon and oxygen, they are obtained from air. Plants will take them from air. Hydrogen they obtain from water, and remaining 13 elements are supplied by the soil. These 13 elements, which are the remaining ones, are the minerals. What are minerals? Mineral is a substance which is obtained by mining. Now all these 16 nutrients, they are essential, and out of these the 13 mineral nutrients, there are certain nutrients which are termed as macronutrients or macro elements, and another one are the micronutrients or the micro element. What are these? Macro means major. So those essential elements which are required by plants in major quantities, in large quantities, they are known as macronutrients. Out of the 13 essential mineral elements, 6 are macronutrients. And which are these 6? Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. These 6 are required by plants in large quantities, whereas those essential mineral elements which are required by plants in small quantities are termed as micronutrients. Now out of 13 we have seen 6 above are macronutrients, so the remaining 7 are micronutrients, and these micronutrients include iron, manganese, boron, zinc, copper, molybdenum, and chlorine. So these are the macro and micronutrients. Now these nutrients are provided to the soil in mainly two forms, that is manures and fertilizers. Let us see what exactly are these one by one. Manures are the natural fertilizers. Manures are bulky sources of organic matter which supply nutrients in small quantities, but they supply organic matter in large quantities. And these manures are prepared by decomposing the animal excreta and the plant waste. These manures are of further various types. These are farmyard manure, that is FYM, compost, green manures, and vermicompost. We are going to study one by one later. Now, when we are providing these manures to the plants, there are certain advantages these manures offer. The first advantage is that the manures enrich the soil with nutrients and they replenish the general deficiency of nutrients in the soil. Second quite important advantage is that these manures, organic matter, that is humus, they add this organic matter to the soil, and this organic matter called humus restores the soil texture for better retention of water and aeration of soil. There is one more advantage of using the manures. The organic matter which is present in manures, it provides food for the soil organisms, which are the decomposers such as the bacteria or the fungi, and these soil organisms help in providing nutrients to the plants. So these are the various advantages of manures. Talking about a bit of detail of manures as to the various types of manures. The first type of manure are farmyard manure, also called FYM. These farmyard manures are the decomposed mixture of cattle excreta, that is cattle dung, urine, litter, that is the bedding material used in night under cattle, and leftover organic matter such as roughage or fodder. All this makes up the farmyard manure. Second type of manure is the compost. Now this compost is prepared from farm as well as town refuse, such as the vegetable and animal refuse, such as the excreta of domestic animals such as cattle, goat, sheep, horse, donkey, camel, goats, dogs, cats, etc. It also includes the fecal matter of human beings and the sewage waste. From all these things, compost is made. The next type of manures are vermicompost. Now, what are vermicompost? The degradation of organic waste through the consumption by the earthworms. That is called vermicomposting, and the degraded waste is called vermicompost. The earthworm is the worm here, but the spelling is not with W, it is with V. This earthworm is an aerator, a crusher and mixer. Physically and chemically, it is a degrader, and biologically, it is a stimulator of decomposition. And that is why earthworms are also known as nature's plowmen and farmers' friends. Right? So these are the vermicomposts. Next are the green manures. These green manures include the growing and mulching by plowing and mixing of green crops with soil in order to improve the physical structure and the soil fertility. So these are all the types of manures, right? The second way of providing nutrients to the plants is through fertilizers. These are man-made artificial nutrient-specific chemicals. They provide plant nutrients commercially manufactured using chemicals. These fertilizers are specific also, like they supply nitrogen or phosphorus or potassium, or they can combine any two nutrients, or they can combine any three. They can combine all nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. They are known as NPK fertilizers. Now these fertilizers are used for good vegetative growth because these fertilizers help in the growth of leaves, branches and flowers, giving rise to healthy plants. These fertilizers, because they are commercially and artificially prepared in factories, they contain specific nutrients and in a much higher amount if we compare it to the manures, and that is why fertilizers are used in very small quantities. And because These fertilizers contain various chemicals. Therefore, these fertilizers should be applied scientifically. Scientifically means there should be a proper dose, there should be a proper time, and the various pre and post application precautions must be taken. Then only they can be completely utilized. Got it? So this is about manures and fertilizers, and this is about the nutrient management of the plants. We talked about nutrients, the macro and the micronutrients. We saw the examples of these nutrients. Then we saw how we are going to provide these nutrients to the plants through manures or fertilizers. Right? Now the nutrients have been provided. Second component is water, and this is done through irrigation. What is irrigation? We all know it is the process of supplying water to crop plants, and it can be supplied through various means, by means of canals or wells or reservoirs or tube wells. All these are used to supply water to crop plants, and this process is called irrigation. There are various irrigation systems that we need to know. The first one is the canal system. What exactly happens in canal system? In canal system, the human made canals, they receive water from one or two reservoirs or from the rivers. And this is usually an elaborate and extensive irrigation system. Here, one main canal is distributed into branch canals, and these branch canals further have distributaries or field channels. Right? The second way to do irrigation or to provide plants the water, that is through tanks. What are tanks? Tanks are small storage reservoirs which catch and store the runoff of smaller catchment areas. In these tanks, the outflows are controlled according to the availability of water. Because if it is not done, it is going to cause uneven distribution of water. The third type of irrigation systems are the wells. Now these wells are constructed wherever exploitable groundwater is present. These wells are further divided into two parts, that is dug wells and tube wells. Let us try to understand both of them. In the dug wells, the water is collected from water bearing strata, and these dug wells have their base below the groundwater table. The water from the shallow strata slowly accumulates in the pit, and from these wells water is lifted by mechanical means, maybe through bullock operated devices. Anyway, right? The next type of wells are the tube wells. Now a tube well, it can tap water from the deeper strata. From these tube wells, water is lifted by diesel or electricity run pumps, and deep bore tube well, they can supply water continuously for many years. So this is the difference between dug wells and tube wells. The next type of irrigation system is a river lift system. Now this river lift system is useful in those areas where the canal flow is insufficient, or if the canal flow is irregular because there is a inadequate water release. Now in this system, the water is directly drawn from the rivers for supplement for irrigation, right? Apart from these, nowadays rainwater harvesting and small check dams, they are also used for irrigation purposes. So now this is how we are going to provide water. So we have provided nutrients to the plants, we have provided water to the plants. Now the next thing required is soil. We need to prepare the soil, we need to maintain the soil fertility, and that is done through various cropping patterns. Now, what exactly are these cropping patterns? These are models of raising crops which help in obtaining maximum benefit from the same piece of land. They also reduce the risk of crop failure, diseases and infestation. Now there are various cropping patterns. Let us try to learn and understand one by one. First one is mixed cropping. Mixed cropping, as the name is suggesting, it is the practice of growing two or more crops simultaneously in the same piece of land. Now, why exactly we are doing so? We are doing it because the main objective is to minimize the risk and ensure against the crop failure due to abnormal weather conditions. Now in India, the farmers use the following combination of the crops. They raise maize along with urad bean, or cotton with moong bean, or groundnut plus sunflower, or sorghum with pigeon pea, or wheat with chickpea, or barley with chickpea, or wheat with mustard. So these are the normal combinations which are usually the farmers they grow these combinations in their fields. Second type of cropping pattern is the intercropping. Intercropping is also just like mixed cropping. In this practice also, we grow two or more crops simultaneously in the same field, and the difference is that this is done in definite row pattern, and the objective is to increase the productivity per unit area. So we can say that intercropping is an improved version of mixed cropping. Fine. Next type of cropping pattern is crop rotation. Now, if we are going to grow a crop in the particular field continuously for many years, it is going to lead to various problems like depletion of the same type of nutrients and the buildup of diseases and insect pests. Keeping in view these reasons, there is a requirement of the practice of crop rotation. This crop rotation can be defined as the practice of growing of different crops on a piece of land in a pre-planned succession. Normally and most commonly, legumes are included in the crop rotation program because they are used to increase the soil fertility. So these are the various cropping patterns. So now we have provided the crops with the nutrients. We have provided the required amount of water through irrigation through various ways, and we have also maintained the fertility of soil. These are all the components of crop production system. After this, we will be considering the crop variety improvement. We need to improve the variety of the crops. Now, why exactly this variety improvement is done? There are various traits, various reasons for which crop variety improvement is done. What are these? Very, very important. Try to relate all. The first reason is to obtain a higher yield. This is the main aim, the main objective why we are doing this chapter. We are doing this chapter because we want to improve our food resources. Why we want to improve? Because we want to fulfill the needs of the growing population, and that we can do only when we can get the higher yield. So the main objective of crop improvement is to improve the productivity of economic produce, that is the grains and the vegetables and the fodder. The second reason why we want improved varieties, just in order to improve the quality. This quality consideration of the crop products, it varies from crop to crop. For example, in wheat, we relate the baking quality. In pulses, we consider the protein quality, and in oil seeds, we relate the oil quality. When it comes to fruits and vegetables, we relate the preserving quality of fruits and vegetables. So in order to get improved quality, we require crop variety improvement. The next reason for which we require to improve the crop variety is we want biotic and abiotic resistance. Under different situations, various crops suffer due to biotic stresses, such as the diseases or the insects and the nematodes, as well as the abiotic stresses, such as the droughts, the salinity, the waterlogging, heat, cold, frost. So, we want to develop such crop varieties which are resistant to these stresses. And once they become resistant to these stresses, obviously we can improve significantly the crop production. Fine. One another important reason for doing the crop variety improvement is changes in the maturity duration. Now, in some of the short duration crops, the early maturity varieties can make the crop fit into double and multiple cropping system. And if it is possible, then it is going to significantly reduce the crop's cost of production. And if we are able to achieve uniform maturity, it will also make the harvesting process easy, and it will reduce the loss of produce during harvesting. So there are many a times when we just prefer to have the crop variety improvement in order to change the maturity duration of the crops. The next reason why we do this crop variety improvement is we need some desirable agronomic traits in our crops. We aim to develop those variety of crops which contain those agronomic traits that we want, because it will help in setting higher production. For example, tallness, high tillering, profuse branching, these are all the desirable characteristics for the fodder crops. But if we are talking about cereals, then we need dwarfness. Why? Because the dwarf varieties provide protection from lodging. So we want to develop those varieties of crops which have all those agronomic traits that we want in them. Another reason is wider adaptability. If we are able to develop such varieties of crops which have wider adaptability, then definitely it is going to help in stabilizing the crop production under different environmental conditions, right? So all these are the various traits for which crop variety improvement is done. Now, for having these high yield varieties, we need to relate these two terms. One is genetic manipulation. What exactly is genetic manipulation? It is the incorporation of new genes for various traits from other genotypes into the crop variety. And why we are doing it? Because it is going to bring about desired changes. This genetic manipulation is carried out through various processes like hybridization, mutation, and breeding, etc. Out of these, this hybridization is important. Let us try to relate what exactly hybridization is. Now, this hybridization is the crossing between genetically dissimilar plants. And why we are doing it? In order to produce a new kind, a new hybrid. This crossing, this process is called hybridization. When we are doing hybridization, we are crossing the genetically dissimilar plants, and these crossing may be done between two different varieties, which may be intervarietal crossbreeding. It may be done between two different species of the same genus. that is called interspecific crossbreeding, and it may be between different genera. It may be called intergeneric crossbreeding. So this is how we can crossbreed the various varieties in order to get the desirable traits. Fine. And this is about our crop variety improvement. Number one, what are the various factors for which crop variety improvement is done? There are various reasons we saw. Then what is genetic manipulation and what is hybridization? Right? Till now, let us try to relate what we have studied. Till now, we have studied about what is improvement in food resources and why it is required. Very importantly, we have learnt about the various revolutions that have taken place, and you need to learn all. The green revolution refers to the high production of food grains. Blue revolution is the enhanced fish production. White revolution relates to the increased milk production, and yellow revolution relates to increased oil production. Then we stressed on sustainable agriculture and what are the various advantages of sustainable agriculture. In this, we learnt about what farming is, what conservation is, and what are integrated agricultural practices. We tried to relate the advantages of sustainable agriculture. Then, importantly, we studied about organic farming, which is little or no use of chemical fertilizers or pesticides and herbicides. We discussed the various advantages of organic farming. Then, importantly, we studied about the various types of crops, the kharif crops and the rabi crops. You need to learn these, which season they are sown. Fine, quite important. Then, we related these three scientific approaches. The first one is the crop production management. Second is the crop variety improvement. Third is the crop protection management. We started up with the crop production management, and for having good crop production, first requirement was nutrient management. We need to provide the required nutrients to the plants. These nutrients are taken up by the plants through air, water, and soil, and these nutrients are categorized as macronutrients and micronutrients. Macro means those nutrients which are required in large quantities, and micro is which are required in small quantities. Total 16 are essential nutrients. Out of these 16, these carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen, they are must for survival. Apart from these three, the remaining 13 are divided into macro and micro. Out of these 13, 6 are the macronutrients, 7 are the micronutrients. Among macro, we have got NPK, that is nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, and calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. Among micronutrients, we have got iron, manganese, boron, zinc, copper, molybdenum, and chlorine. Then we talked about the various sources of providing these nutrients, either through manures or through fertilizers. Manures are rich in organic matter, but they are not nutrient specific. Right? Now, these manures are very advantageous because they not only enrich the soil with nutrients but also provide humus, and they also provide food for the soil organisms. There are various types of manures. We studied about mainly these four: the farmyard manures, the compost, the vermicompost, and the green manures. Clear? Next, we studied about fertilizers, that they are specific, nutrient specific, they are artificially made, they are made using chemicals. Mainly the fertilizers provide the macronutrients nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But because they contain the chemicals, so their scientific use in terms of proper dose, time, pre and post application precautions, that is needed to be taken care of. So this is where we provided the nutrients. Now we provided the water through irrigation, and we saw 5 irrigation systems. The first one is the canal system, second one are the tanks, third one are the wells, they are the dug wells, next ones are the tube wells, and the river lift system. Among these, we need to know between the dug wells and the tube wells. So after providing nutrients and water, now we need to prepare the soil, and to maintain the soil fertility we have got these 3 cropping patterns. One is the mixed cropping, in which 2 or more crops are simultaneously grown in the same piece of land. Intercropping is an improved version of mixed cropping, in which the same process is done but in a definite row pattern, right? And the next is crop rotation, that we do not grow one type of crop continuously in any particular field, because that is going to lead to the deficiency of nutrients in the soil. So the crops are regularly rotated, especially legumes are included for this crop rotation program. After this, we went for the crop variety improvement. We saw various factors for which variety improvement is done: for higher yield, for improved quality, for abiotic and biotic resistance, for change in maturity duration, for getting the desired agronomic traits, and for wider adaptability. And for these, we had this process of genetic manipulation, in which we incorporate new genes. Now this is done through various processes: hybridization, mutation, and breeding. Out of these, we studied about hybridization, that it is the crossing between genetically dissimilar plants, right, in order to produce a new hybrid. This can be intervarietal, that is between 2 different varieties, or interspecific, means between different species of the same genus, or intergeneric, that is between different genera, right? Now after this, we will be working out for how to protect the crops. Fine, that I'll be taking up in the next class. Till now, I want you people to go through and learn whatever we have studied till now. And in the next class, we'll be talking about the third scientific outlook, that is the crop protection. Clear? So I hope till now, whatever we have studied, you are able to understand. Lot many things are quite general, so you can just go through them twice and thrice. That will be all. Only a few things you need to focus in order to learn. So by the next class, make sure that you are through and thorough with everything till now. And in the next class, we are going to finish off this particular chapter, improvement in food resources. So we'll meet you shortly for the remaining chapter. Till then, take care of yourself. Goodbye, everyone.